I'm invincible. I'm paying money. The girl's happy. She's got no money. I got my rocks off. Oh, how good is this?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Bound for Glory, the only AFL show on SYN 90.7 FM. We got another big show this week. We'll look at the semi-finals from this weekend, take a look towards the prelim finals that are now, well, they're now done for next week, and we'll do some more of the team reviews that we kicked off last week. You know, we'll look at the lower end of the bottom eight and the teams that didn't make finals that we didn't assess last week, and they were Adelaide, North and Essendon. So take an in-depth look at those, and it should be a good show. But first we'll introduce the panel. I'm Ethan.
I'm Peter.
I'm Damon.
And last night we had a fairly resounding performance from Sydney once again. I think people were probably tipping it to be a bit closer than, well, it did end up being close, but Sydney were, for the most part, quite impressive, getting it out to 48 points. And, I mean, they only won by 4 goals in the end, but it was a more dominant performance than that, I felt.
I think that it comes down to every year, and it happens every year, whenever the qualifying finals lose and the elimination finals win, the teams from those, there's always that sense that, someone will go out in straight sets, something will happen, but it rarely ever does. It's only happened once, I think.
It's happened twice under the current system. It was Collingwood in 07 and Hawthorn in 2001.
Yeah, so I mean,
that's in 13, 14 years of the system. It's an incredible stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And even then, like, when Collingwood beat West Coast, they had their whole midfield out. So, I mean, it does take quite a bit.
That one went to extra time, didn't it?
It did, yeah, but they had no Judd, Cousins or Kerr, so that kind of explains it. But, I mean, Sydney, I think some people forgot how good Sydney can be on their day. I mean, sure, they may not have the same, I guess, aura around them they did last year, but I still think they're a very, very good side. Obviously, they're going to have few troubles travelling to Freo. They've played over there and played well against West Coast, but
West Coast is a
completely different side to Freo.
Yeah, but I completely agree. I think one thing that's impressed me about Sydney this year is their depth. You know, bring up players like Shane Biggs, Dane Rampy consolidated himself from round one. Even players like Harry Cunningham, who kicked 2 goals last night. You know, they've got a lot of young players that are, you know, they play reserves most weeks when the team's fit, but when the team's not fit, they're able to be called up upon and, you know, can perform, and they did last night, and, you know, it went a long way, especially with, you know, the lacking rotations, especially towards the end of the match with Tippett and Mitchell out. And
one of the standouts, of course, has been reported in the paper and everywhere this morning, is Jared McVeigh. Put on a clinic last night. He had 20 disposals up to the quarter time, so he was
the second quarter. He had 20 disposals.
Amazing, absolutely amazing, and finished with 42 disposals and 2 goals. That's crazy.
Couldn't be stopped.
And it's amazing because they also get so much out of their older players. Like, just when you think they're about to, you know, roll over towards the retirement stage and that kind of thing. I know he's got probably a couple of years left at least, but they seem to get better. They get better with age. It's literally like a fine wine over there. So
Ryan O'Keefe hasn't dropped off at all.
Oh, he's phenomenal.
He's still a fantastic player. 30 disposals last night. You know, Dan Hanbury, I think, you know, he showed that he was still at 100% fitness. You know, his run along the wings was sensational. And, yeah, Kieran Jack as well. You know, when you've got co-captains like Jared McVeigh and Kieran Jack, you know, performing like that, Sydney's going to go a long way. And if they do that next week, they're going to be a very, very tough side to beat.
And I think it was tough going into the match because I think, from what my opinion this season is, you've seen Sydney are one of the best two-way runners in the competition, I think, if you look at it that way. And there have been games this season where Carlton have seen that they've been a bit one-way running, particularly a few of their players. There's a few that'll run the other way, as you said. There's a few defensively minded midfielders who play there because the likes of Simpson and Walker are playing down back or around the field. So they really had to be on their game in a way. Obviously, the few players that needed to run both ways, it's sort of hard to assess. But how did you see the likes of like Gibbs and those kind of players who usually are sort of, I guess, criticised for the way that they might not run defensively as hard?
Yeah, I thought with Kerno going off injured and being subbed, of course, it kind of hurt us in a way because he's probably our best defensive stopper and in the midfield, and without him there, it kind of leaves a bit of a hole because I think you can't really rely on Gibbs. He's not really, he is played in defence, but I think he's a better attacking player than he is having a defensive mindset.
And he was looking good in that first quarter for a little while, but yeah, losing Ed Kerno, who I think he was on Kieran Jack at the time, that really does hurt when he's your best stopper, and because he's got such fantastic endurance, he's probably the best runner at the club. It really makes it difficult for Carlton.
Yeah, and I mean, in a way, I guess Carlton would be sort of going, look, we technically finished in 9th, if you want to look at it that way. We won a final, so, I mean, it's never happened before. So, in that sense, that they'd really consider it a success from 2 weeks ago, really.
Yeah, it would have been a failure had we not beaten Richmond last week, because looking at it, compared to when Ratton was in charge, we've finished virtually in the same position. Won the first week of the finals and then we've been knocked out. Yeah,
well, there were a few weeks ago when the week before Port, when they lost, they were sort of calling for Malthouse's head. But it's amazing how 2 weeks can change and then suddenly everyone's praising him again. So.
Yeah, because, I mean, you look at the scorecard and it is a very good performance for Carlton. I mean, Sydney at their home ground, coming within 4 goals is something that not too many teams do.
Yeah.
I mean, Sydney don't play ANZ particularly well, but it's still a very respectable performance from Carlton in that aspect.
And obviously Sydney got up to a large margin and then it got dragged back because they didn't score, I don't think, in the last quarter. So
to say he held Sydney scores in a quarter is, again, something very few teams can say they've ever done.
And I guess in a way, how Carlton have come back the last couple of weeks against Port and Richmond. So, I mean, obviously Sydney are completely different kettle of fish compared to those two, but they obviously came back, and obviously there would have been in the back of the minds of the Sydney players, knowing they had to travel to Freo, they probably would have eased off that little bit, but in the end they got the job done. So I think it's fair enough.
And one of the major talking points, of course, has been Kurt Tippett. He twinged his knee. I don't know what the actual diagnosis was, but it was his first mark of the game against Jamison, contested mark, and landed awkwardly and was sort of under the weather, I guess you could say, for the rest of when he was on the field and they had to sub him.
Well, he looked pretty sore as soon as he'd done it. It looked like he hurt his groin, the way it looked like he was trying to walk through a brick wall or something. But yeah, it's going to be tough to see him come up for next week versus Freo, especially with the long flight. I mean, they can risk it, but he's not going to be able to. He's not very mobile with that. I mean, we saw it last night, and it looked painful, and I don't think he'll come up personally.
Maybe shove him on a bus and start driving now.
Yeah. Get him on a bike, Shane Crawford, get him over there.
might give the knee some more movement.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tippett and Tom Mitchell as well. I think it really adds to an ever-growing injury list of Sydney. I think that's why they're not such a threatening team this year. I mean, they've got so many players out. I think Adam Goods was written off for the rest of the year. So it's not looking very good for Sydney.
Is Sydney's this year, I guess, similar to, say, Collingwood's last year, where they were going well, they had a few injuries, their form was a little up and down, and Sydney have sort of had the same. Like, obviously, Collingwood had a great year before, and they sort of teed it off enough, but they were good enough to still make the top 4, but they weren't good enough to sort of beat the top 2 teams. And now Sydney is sort of in that spot.
And we know that Sydney and Collingwood, or at least then, both had top 3, top 2 squads. And if fully fit, probably would have made grand final sides. So, I think Sydney can bounce back next year. I mean, their players, they've got a few old players. I mean, Jude Bolton's retiring. I don't know what's happening with Adam Goods, but you think he persists for at least one more year. They've got a lot of young players coming through. So, I mean, it's been a good year. I mean, to say they finished top 4 is still a very good year. But I think they'll be aiming for more next season.
Yeah, and I think with that we'll go to some SYN messages and come back with the other match that was there.
Are you sick of the politicians of today?
Leaving young people on the dole is such a terrible waste.
Tune in to Future Politicians to hear from the leaders of tomorrow. Saturdays, 3:30 to 4:30.
A side quest is an optional section of a video game and is commonly found in role-playing games.
It is a smaller mission within a larger storyline and can be used as a means to provide non-linear structures to an otherwise linear plot.
As a general rule, the completion of side quests are not essential for the game to be finished, but can bring various benefits to the player characters.
Also non-essential but highly awesome is side quests and Sin.
So tune in Fridays at 11 PM to hear Side Quest, Sin's home of indie and retro gaming.
With the 24-hour news cycle, politics can at times be a little hard to keep up with.
Prime Minister Kevin Rudd will today detail billions of dollars in
When
savings.
Ed Husic was sworn in as Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister and for broadband on Monday.
As you would probably be aware by now, Kevin Rudd has been elected
members believe
as
that
leader
Kevin
of
Rudd
the
might be able to secure a win.
Throughout Season 3, Brodie Carmody and myself, Matilda Morozzi, will be here with Future Politicians, bringing you all the political developments and policies which are going to be important to your future. Tune in every Saturday afternoon from 3:30 to 4:30 PM. Future Politicians, tomorrow's politicians today on Sin.
Welcome to Bound for Glory on Sin. And we got another panellist joining us. Matt Joyce is back, and
much like Sydney, I eventually turn up. So that's
much like Geelong, you eventually turned up, I think. Who were scared a little while by Port Adelaide, but eventually came up with the preliminary final berth.
No, it was a great match. I think both games were pretty good, barring the ANZ Stadium garbage. But let's not get onto that. But yeah, a good week of semi-finals, in my opinion. A lot of people say it's a waste of time just because only 2 times since the new system has come in, the top 4 have gone out in straight sets. So I think it's a good system. It really rewards the top 4 for finishing there in the home and away season.
But there's no chaos like there was in the McIntyre system of the late 90s.
I'm just good about forgetting the late 90s and most of the 80s.
I think Bulldogs fans are happy it changed too.
Yeah, that too. But back to the game, it was really good. Chappie kicked, 4 goals?
4 goals too.
Great comeback to form. He always lifts for those big games. Jimmy Bartell as well.
He's got to be one of the best finals performers that of the last 10 years or so.
No, definitely. You can't go past that bald head, and I love it. And the business beard. I'm sick of the business beard, though. You're a footballer, Chappie. You can't rock the business beard.
Business beard?
Yeah,
I heard that too.
It's so clean and cut perfectly. No.
Sort of like the Jason Derulo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you are neither black nor a businessman, Paul Chapman. But yeah, I mean, it was great to see them. Cam Guthrie, I thought, was absolutely sensational. He was recruited as a early draft pick and played a lot of run with roles at under 18s level, and he's really shown that he can do that at AFL level as well.
They gave him Gary Avlett's number when Ablett left the Gold Coast, and I mean that's how highly they rated him. And he's had 2 very good weeks in a row. Last week against Freo, he was probably the best performer in their back line, and once again he was good on Friday night.
Definitely, and I thought Josh Hunt had a quite good game as well. He's always right on the fringe there, in and out of the side, and it'll be interesting to see if anyone gets called back. I mean, Enright's going to come back in next week, but
you'd assume so, yeah.
Yeah, for Hunt, you'd have to say maybe. Can't see many other.
Which one, Josh or Taylor?
Josh.
Yeah, Josh.
Although there is the question mark over Chappie, whether he'll get anything for that hit. I know a lot of Hawthorn fans are hoping he gets it and trying to cite, Lance got a
spin the
week
wheel and see what you get. Same with Teddy Richards. Did you mention that in the Sydney game?
No, we didn't.
He's on report as well for the exact same thing. Stop bumping. Stop doing it.
Very similar to Lance Franklin as well in the previous week.
Chappie left his feet though, so I think he might be in trouble, but Ted didn't. So I think Chappie will get 1 week. Ted may be a reprimand, but who knows?
Yeah. Maybe $500,000 fine or something.
For not tanking. But, I mean, the scoring shots were well in Geelong's favour, so you can't say that they were undeserving winners. I think the umpiring was a little favourable to Geelong. Actually, I think all of the frees that were called were there, but it were the frees that weren't called in Port Adelaide's favour that really
the consistency aspect of it. Like in the last quarter especially, I saw there was a couple. There was one that was said it was high for Geelong, and it was high for the same thing as well for Port, and like pretty much identical situation.
And let's be honest, when the AFL couldn't get Collingwood and Geelong, they're going, we're definitely not avoiding a Geelong Hawthorn. We're not.
Imagine a Port Fremantle grand final.
Exactly. Well, that's what I was thinking about the other day. You might actually have a MCG that's half filled, and
go. I mean,
you could probably walk up at the gate and be like, "Yeah, I have a couple of tickets."
But and as well, just on the free kicks. How about that one that was paid to Joel Corey in the goal square? That was absolutely ridiculous.
Was that for the hole?
Yeah.
That was stupid.
The hole.
Yeah, he did. They grabbed onto each other.
And he's like, I pushed him, I didn't hold him. which is better. But, I mean, it's great to see Port Adelaide have such a fantastic year.
Well, they pushed Geelong all the way, and I still think people weren't expecting that. I think... people early in the week were tipping, we know that Geelong, they finished second on the ladder for a reason. Port Adelaide, we know they finished seventh on the ladder for a reason. At the MCG, it's Geelong's probably second home ground. It wasn't played at Cardinia Park, of course, and I think people wrote Port Adelaide off very quickly. We know they're still a very fit side. We know that they take it up to most sides. They're very, very competitive and very, very confident in the way that they play. And they really did take it up to Geelong. And to say that 3 goals short of Geelong in a semi-final, something they were really taking the next year.
Port basically looked spent about 5-6 weeks ago because they were losing quite a few of their games, and then they obviously lost to Carlton close, and everyone thought, they'll probably, lose to Collingwood.
I thought they were spent when they dropped that in the last quarter. I mean, they absolutely lost their cool.
Yeah, and then they come out, maybe they're just saving themselves, and they beat Collingwood fair enough. And a lot of, I guess, there was a lot of criticism more directed at Collingwood losing it, but Port were fantastic in that game. Wines, Wingard, and it shows how good they'll be for the future. And again, they've come up and really stood up against Geelong. I mean, obviously the second half they were probably overwhelmed that little bit more, but they really took it up to them. And even at three-quarter time, they were still well within a shot, and they were only, 7 points down. So,
And how about AFL.com.au with their awful pictures of Tom Hawkins? Their arms widespread. Looks like one of the clowns at the showgrounds.
I posted on Twitter a photo of Chucky.
Yeah.
The evil doll. Chucky, they actually look like him with evil eyes.
Exactly the
very,
same.
very scary. It's like he's consuming your soul. But one player that caught my eye, I reckon... Sorry, I just had to quickly brush past that. Just from a personal experience. My soul was being sucked out. Stephen Motlop. Do you think he is currently, or will be, the best sort of small roaming forward? Better than Lindsay Thomas. I would have him
at the moment
over Thomas, over Betts, over anyone.
Walters. I really rate Walters.
I'd tie him with Rioli.
I'd say he's better than Rioli.
I would take both in a heartbeat, but I couldn't pick one over.
What about Bruce? Bruce is very underrated, in my opinion.
He plays a different game. He sort of is that roaming forward who relies probably more on taking a mark and just finding space rather than Motlop and Rioli, who are more crummers. They're smaller, they tackle harder. That's more their game style. So, I mean, they're both smalls. They're both small, medium forwards, but they play very different games.
I think Motlop's had a lot more consistency this year too. Like, obviously, Rioli's had injury concerns and things like that, but I think I found that Motlop in general has had that extra consistency, which is really good for a small forward, because that is the thing that a lot of them, obviously, it plagues a lot of them.
Wouldn't mind seeing both bound down the MCG wing on Friday night.
Yeah. And just seeing the text line, be sure to text in, by the way, 0427 767 767. Thoughts on Mark Blitzarves' game? Obviously, he's a great athlete, and I think that's really going to come to the fore in finals games where people are expending a lot more energy just throughout the game, and he's just going to be able to keep running and running and running and creating, and I think that's what he did. He really outworked Lobe, who was absolutely sensational as well, in my opinion.
Well, that's the problem for Geelong at the moment, because they got Simpson and McIntosh out injured at the moment. They've got to play players like Blitzarves and West and Vardy. They've got to play these players in the ruck, and I mean it does hurt them, but there's no one else. You can't exactly drop Mark Blitzarves at the moment. I mean, even if he does have a poor game, next week, even if he only has 15 hit-outs and 5 disposals, even if Geelong win, you still got to play him in the grand final.
And here you go, one for you, Heath. On the text line, someone's texted in, Neville Jetta is better than Cyril Rioli. What do you think? From personal experience about Neville Jetta.
The shock on his face.
Actually, that should be the next text. Things better than Neville Jetta.
Things better than surreal.
Yeah.
And there's another text in asking, is Sydney any chance of knocking off Fremantle, the blood cold chicken, get them over the line? I think no.
No.
There is a chance.
There's a chance. It's a very, very
chance.
slim chance. But, yeah, there is a chance.
Come on, Freo. I want them to win.
Yeah, I'm rooting very heavily for Freo as well, but you can never, ever write off Sydney, especially a prelim final with a grand final spot on the line.
Yeah, but without possible Tippett, without Mitchell, without Goods, without Reid, without
if we keep
Richards,
going, we won't be able to finish the rest of the
exactly. That's the reason. I think McFarlane will finally be fully fit, and able to basically monster whoever goes. Well, who will be their forward? Jesse White, Mike Pike.
Yeah, White and Pike will have to. They'll play
the
in
good
tandem,
old rhyming forward line.
It's not exactly potent, but Pike's kicked over 20 goals this year. White's been kicking goals of late. There are goals there, and we know that they kick goals from the midfield as well. Most of their goals last night were from players like McVeigh and Cunningham and Parker, and they always hit the scoreboard.
Yeah, but that's because Tippett wasn't there. When he is there, they go to him.
Oh, well, they've done it all
80%
year.
of the time.
They've done it all year. So I mean, they were okay without Tippett in the first half of the year. So I think they'll survive. They know how to play without him. But yeah, I think we'll go to some sim messages. Be sure to text in on 0427 767 767 or online at sin.org.au. Send us a free web message. We'll be back after this.
Raw, SmackDown, Main Event, NXT. All on the SmackDown Hotel every Saturday night from 9 p.m. Only on Sin.
Meanwhile, on something completely different.
Remember those old email things where people just fill out a bunch of questions and forward them to everyone? I found one that Tom filled out in 2003. This is the section I think we've all been waiting for. It's guys to fill out on their ideal girl. Light or dark eyes, dark. Light or dark hair, dark. Curly or straight hair, he's put both. Tom, they're mutually exclusive.
Yeah, no, I don't think they are. I think one side can be curly, I think the other side can be straight.
Strap yourselves in for something completely different with Nick Mason, Tony Besselink and Little Tommy Needham. Saturdays from 7 p.m. on Sin.
When I say orchestra, you think of this. However, orchestras can also mean this. Young people of Australia, take everything you know about classical music and shove it up your Rachmaninoff. Listen to The Baton on Sin Radio, 7 a.m. Sunday mornings to have everything you thought you knew about orchestral music conducted to smithereens.
Sin's Australian feature album of the week is Bad Dreams, Badlands.
Rad band out of Adelaide released their debut EP Badlands. Drawing influence from loneliness, boredom, madness and freedom, Badlands is 6 tracks of pop songs with dark driving guitars and a high rock energy.
Listen to the Australian feature album Bad Dreams, Badlands all this week on Sin.
And we're back on Bound for Glory. Be sure to text in again, 0427 767 767. We're getting a lot of interaction today, as well as online at sin.org.au. Going straight into some team reviews now, starting off with the mighty Adelaide Crows, who did not make the finals, so they're not that mighty.
Weren't so mighty this year.
Well, they could have if Carlton had lost that last game to Port.
Or just not... Wait.
Yeah, they could have.
Or, I mean, they had plenty of chances, so it's their fault. But they'll get Taylor Walker back next year, who unfortunately went out early in the season.
And Josh Jenkins as well.
And Josh Jenkins as well.
Recovered from his serious leg injury.
They'll lose some dead weight in Sean McKernan, hopefully ship him off to Carlton.
No. Sorry, cough.
But, I mean, what do you see them doing? They're really screwed over because of the lack of draft picks that they've got. And it's... I think it was way too harsh by the AFL. I mean, they gave up their picks last year in good faith.
It was rorting the salary cap.
Yeah, but Not that bad.
You compare it to Essendon. Compare it to Essendon.
Yeah.
And the punishment.
Oh, Adelaide, you rorted the salary cap and tried to blatantly cheat. Let's only sanction you a couple of draft picks and send your CEO on a 6-month suspension.
It's a holiday, pretty much.
That is, that's leave.
Yeah, that's right, paid leave.
Maybe
probably not paid leave, but it's leave nonetheless.
They probably should have sent him to like a accounting company or something, and that's his punishment. Work there for 6 months.
Learn how to do things legally.
Someone asking if Bernard Vince is on the outer, perfect for a team needing midfielders like Melbourne or North. I would say yes. Well, not really needing midfielders that badly, but he's older than he looks. He's like 28, 29, and that's why he wouldn't be so good. I mean, you can obviously take on someone like Daniel Cross, who's highly rumoured to be going to Melbourne, but I don't think someone like Vince, for what he would cost, I don't think he's worth it.
I think Adelaide need these midfielders, though. I mean, they've got Dangerfield and Thompson, who are fantastic, but after that it does drop away a little bit. They need players like Vince who, can have his 20, 25 disposals a game to have that impact on the lower rung, because once Dangerfield and Thompson get tagged out of it, or if they have a poor game, which they did have this year, especially, Dangerfield was injured and Vince would become probably the second best midfielder, if not,
What about Rory? We love Rory.
Or other players like Rory Sloane, who's really stepping up, one of the best and fairest, of course. And once those lower string midfielders like Vince, who we know is very capable, start stepping up, Adelaide become a very lethal side through the centre. And we saw that when they finished second on the ladder. Even players like Matthew Wright, who was fantastic in 2012 and didn't really do that in 2013. I think that's their problem, is that those players aren't. Those lower string midfielders aren't doing so well through the midfield. So, once they get these players back, once they get them firing, I think they'll be a much better side next year.
And we actually have a text in on Rory Sloane saying, Rory Sloane for pick 2. Would Melbourne take that in a heartbeat?
I think Melbourne would. I'm not sure if Adelaide would, but he's probably worth pick 2 at the moment. He is a best and fairest winner, and he's only 23, 24.
It was a 2008 draft.
2008 draft,
Yeah.
so he's 23.
Yeah.
So he's got 10 years left. If you're going to get 10 years of Rory Sloane, I think Melbourne would give up pick 2 for that in a heartbeat. The question is whether Adelaide would.
I think Adelaide would need to sweeten it a tiny bit, in my opinion. Pick 2's a bit... there's some very good talent in this year's draft, as we all know. And as well, just thinking about... I've lost my train of thought.
Just thinking about nothing. So where do we see Adelaide finishing next year then?
Not the top 8.
Not the top 8?
I reckon contending again, just outside. I reckon 9 to 12.
Do you reckon if they had Walker this year, do you reckon they would have finished top 8?
Oh, they got pretty damn close. I don't. If Essendon weren't stripped of their points, no. But if they... the situation came the exact same thing, then yes, I think they would have made it.
Yeah, I think they would have been in that 8 to 10 bracket. So
And
they'll be better next year with him back.
And we're forgetting the runner-up in the Rising Star, Brett Crouch, as well.
Oh, he was brilliant the second half of the year.
He was absolutely phenomenal. And they're going to be gutted that they're not going to pick up his brother in the draft just because, well, unless they trade. But, it'll take a top
pick
10.
Pick 2 for Rory Sloane, pick up Matt Crouch.
Not with pick 2.
Not with pick 2, no.
With pick 10.
No, I know he's not with pick 2. But
yeah.
You'd take Aish if you got pick 2.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It'd be a straight swap Sloane for Aish, really. So
that's not too bad.
They might, yeah. I don't think they'll trade Rory Sloane, though. You don't trade a best and fairest winner.
No.
Moving on to North Melbourne,
our every favourite team.
Our favourite last quarter specialist.
What to tell about North? I think the top 6 next year. Just because of so much good young talent coming through. Harvey's signed on again.
We start talking about great young talent, and all of a sudden we go into Brent Harvey, who's 45 years old.
It's an additive thing. So Harvey, as well as the young talent, and Petrie, who is the perfect footballer in my opinion. Really is. He's absolute professional, good at everything, very good at everything, not great at anything,
and a very good leader as well.
Yeah.
I think because Brad Scott, I think, one of the things that let him down this year was his match day coaching. I think, Drew Petrie, I think, almost sending himself down back at times to stem the flow, and, he kept presenting well all year up forward, and, at times in the ruck, he's probably one of the best players this year. So, Polwell and the best and fairest, I'm sure.
And James Brayshaw said the other day that they're looking for outside midfielders, which is why Nick Del Santo's on the cards there. He said on Triple M, and they were talking about Luke Delaney and a pick for Nick Del Santo. So
take that in a heartbeat if you were not. And you also, just speaking of more outside players, got a text in asking about Adelaide in regards to Eddie Betts, who's also on the radar of North Melbourne. I think Adelaide they need to do something the off-season because they don't have any draft picks. Well, they do. They just don't have any first or second round. But do they need him? Do they need him?
I don't think they do. Not for 550,000. They certainly don't.
And North was offering
drop zeros off that.
Yeah, North were offering 500,000. I think.
Oh yeah, well,
if they're willing to offer that sort of money, they can take him.
Yeah.
Just like he kicked 2 goals.
Just like Dale Thomas.
Would you take Jeffy Garlett kicked 3 kicks. 3 kicks. That's it. And 3 tackles.
They're all the same though. They're all.
Yaron was all right.
Yeah. Oh, well, Yaron's up and down, though. He's
very up and down.
Yeah, they're all...
What are you saying?
Robbie Tarrant on the outer. Here he's going to Carlton, says this texty.
Oh, yes, please. Yes. Carlton are crying out for a key forward and can't rely on weight, as we've seen with his injury history and his stupidity.
There you
go. So I reckon, yeah, he'd be one that we'd definitely want and need.
I mean, surely North would want to keep him if they've got Petrie with only, 2 years left in him.
He's 31?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's getting old.
I mean, they got Majak Dor coming through, who, he's kicked 6 goals against the Dogs one game. I mean, his other games weren't fantastic, but, he's shown that he can play at AFL level. So, I mean, he'll probably replace Petrie once Petrie goes, I suppose.
Yeah, and you've got Aaron Black, who's looking absolutely sensational.
Oh, he's a fantastic footballer. I think, he's probably one of the most agile key forwards in the game at the moment. He kicked how many goals this year? 35? Yeah, thereabouts. So, it's a very, very good season for someone who, who's only really just broken into the team. I think he came in round 5 or so, and North Melbourne's future is looking very good with him, there for the next 10 or so years.
And then they've got Luke McDonald for free, well, not for free, but guaranteed to get him at least in the draft, who's going to be sensational. Great utility player, which is really what they need around the ground, maybe to just block off a few things that are happening around the ground, which tends to happen. Kieran Harper hasn't been getting much game time. What's going on with that? Injured knee?
He injured his knee in the VFL and never really got fitness back. And I mean, he wasn't really performing that well anyway, I think.
And you've got the best small forward in the comp, Lindsay Thomas, who his kicking has been great this year. I'll give him that. I will not say it, but he's at least got rid of his yips, which is something that really was bothering him last year. And I was surprised with some of the goals he's been kicking. I mean, he's always had that field kicking talent, but the goal kicking was never there. So whoever's fixed that up, good job at North Melbourne. And you clap. And someone else in the text line, Yaron will be coming to North. Well, are all of the 3 amigos coming to North? What's happening? Because Carlton,
how big is your salary cap, North?
Package the deal.
Has Stephen Treat been working for?
But I mean, Carlton's going to keep at least one of them. Do you think it's Garlett, Damon?
Yeah. It's hard to sort of put your finger on who.
Garlett's got to be top of the list. He's the most damaging player on his day, and I think he's the youngest as well.
Yeah, he is.
If not,
I'll rate him about the same as Yaron, I think. Yeah.
So,
but I think, based on Betts and the price tag that he's put on his head, you have to scratch him out. Yaron and the fact that he's just been out of sorts for pretty much the entire year, and Garlett, I think, has probably been the best of those 3.
Except on a final. And where do you think they'll be finishing next year, North Melbourne?
Oh, top 6.
Yeah, definitely top 8. I'll say that.
Yeah, I reckon I wouldn't be surprised if they're pushing for top 4. They were very unlucky not to finish in the top 8 this season, and sort of entrenched towards the top 4.
Just one more quick text about North Melbourne, saying that they think, this texter thinks that Sam Wright, Geordie Gisberts, Luke Delaney, Levi Greenwood and Liam Anthony will all be gone.
Someone's swinging the axe a bit early.
I see a lot of them maybe leaving. I mean, Melbourne could use a couple, couldn't they?
Oh, such as Geordie Gisberts, who was there.
Who was there last year?
Oh, sensational.
Brock McLean selection.
Yeah. Anyway.
No, Wright's been doing okay. Delaney,
he's probably going to get traded rather than delisted.
Greenwood, I think, did very well, especially in Andrew Swallow's absence. You know, he's one of those fringe players who, you know, he performed admirably. And Liam Anthony, you know,
the outside player who can't kick.
The only player I've seen averaging 26 disposals a game to get dropped. So I think that about sums up his career at the moment.
And I think we probably, with that, should move on to the next team in the Essendon.
The Bombaz.
Technically ninth.
Technically ninth. Took our spot. But, I mean, they had a... I want to say they had a good year. On field, they had a good year. And there's no points stripped for next year, but who knows what's going to happen with the Asada investigation and if they're going to have anybody playing for them next year. But
well, they were able to inject some youth this year, so sorry, I had to use that joke.
And it'll be good
are we just going to fill the segment with puns?
Puns with bad puns, yep. But seriously, they did actually bring in some youth, and I think that'll really hold them in good stead next year.
Really enhance their performance.
Yeah.
What a joke. Joe Danaher had a good, decent year. I mean, he's still a stick. So he's going to always have trouble at AFL level. He really does take the ball at its highest point, though, and that's going to be really good for his whole career. I mean, he's similar to Paul Salmon in mine. He doesn't ruck as well as him at the moment, but obviously when he gets more size on, he's going to be able to do that.
Got some muscle growth to go.
Yeah. Just lock him in a dungeon gym for the whole off season, and he'll be right. I think
some sterile clinic somewhere
across from Windy Hill.
Up to UV drip when he's doing pumping up his guns.
Another text.
Send him to Stephen.
Another text. So many texts today. Robin Nahas to Essendon. Get around it.
Robin Nahas to Essendon's VFL side. Maybe.
Yeah. I would say Nahas to the Dogs, if anything.
That's the rumour that's doing that. Maybe we can chat about that after.
Ooh, very interesting. But who else for the Dons? I mean, they've obviously got no first or second rounder this year. And
I don't think they really need them at this point, though. I think, Essendon are at the point, in their development where draft picks aren't first and foremost. They're a team that is on the up. Their core midfield, bar Joe Watson, who's 28, 29, is, players like Zaharakis and Heppel, and, Goddard's a bit older as well, but their peak is in the next 3-4 years.
And being a midfielder's draft this year, that's probably in their favour, if anything.
Yeah, exactly. So they got the midfield, that... if they're going to push for a premiership in the next 3 years, they've got the midfield there already. So I think, a first-round draft pick such as, I don't know who's there, maybe Christian Salem, he's not going to walk into the side. And if Essendon are top two in 2015 or 2016, he's not going to walk into the side then either.
Well, they might be better off getting an inside midfielder anyway, like just someone who they can get cheap late in the draft that helps put the pressure off Watson in the future, because there's so many of them.
I think we're seeing it right now with someone like Elliot Kavanagh, who was a top pick, who was... probably dropped down the draft a little bit due to his hamstring issues that he had in his junior years. Still hasn't cracked the side. Still hasn't established himself. He was picked 19 2-3 years ago. And, with such a widespread midfield that Essendon have, he hasn't been able to crack the side. So, hopefully he does, but I think it says a lot about the way Essendon are playing at the moment and how good their squad is. And I think, pending investigation, they'll be better next year.
And they've got a mid-third rounder. So one player that I really think is sliding in the draft is Dyson Heppel's little brother, who's... I don't think he's going to go as high as he was.
He'll be there then. He'll be there then.
Yeah. Yep. And I know that they were very keen on picking him up, as well as...
He's a more contested style.
Zach Merritt as well. Brother, yeah, he's more contested, but not as polished. I think that's the way that you can put it.
And another text in, where is Gumby going? I demand to know. I love my Gumby. Well, they're only signing him on 1-year deals from now on, so if someone else offers him 2 years, then or 3 even,
he'll be bolting out.
Yeah, I mean,
definitely.
The Dogs could use him. I know that Cramery's highly rumoured to be going to the Dogs. And a lot of what happens to Essendon in the wake of this whole punishment and blah, 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 is dependent on how the players really feel about it and whether any of them choose to walk out. Because I know it's been discussed that if they want, they can walk out as delisted free agents, so they can go wherever they want and not have, the club restrict them and say, no, we need to, get some sort of compensation for it.
Yes, Essendon wouldn't really get compensated for delisted free agents.
No, they wouldn't at all.
No.
As a normal free agent, they would be able to move, but someone I've heard is Ryder, for example. So if Ryder wanted to go somewhere, even though he's signed on at Essendon for, I think, 3 more years, he would be able to just walk out, and that's what would hurt Essendon.
Yeah,
so
and guys like Leroy Jeter and people like that, they might walk out too, and then they're in real strife.
That'll hurt.
That'll hurt. And as well, I think they should be pretty heavily invested in the trade period as well. I mean, you've got Bellchambers and Pears who are likely to get traded, in my opinion. I'm not sure why. They don't exactly have a crapload of rucks. So if you lose Bellchambers, that puts Ryder in the ruck. What if Ryder gets injured? Who they got then? Well, nobody. That's who they got.
Well, that's the thing, and I think one of the guys that the text suggested, Robin Nahas, obviously, that's another thing. Yeah, well, there you go. But I mean, another one who might be, I don't know, can you tell us whether they'd be active in trade period is Richmond?
Yes. Well, obviously there's heavily rumoured about Taylor Adams, who I think he prefers to go to Richmond, but he hasn't made them his preferred club of choice, if that makes sense, because he wants GWS to get something decent out of the trade. So if he actually nominates Richmond as his preferred club, the negotiations are strongly hampered in GWS's side.
And we got another text in, Owen Davey to Richmond.
Get out.
Maybe a straight swap for Robin Nahas.
Might as well sign up his brother as well.
Don't even start.
Get him out of retirement.
We don't need him.
Just straight swap for Nahas. That'll be good.
And you've got Matthew McDonough, who's shown a fair bit, as well as a small forward. Plugger, his nickname is. It's similar to Tony Lockett.
No, he's not.
No, that's actually his nickname, though. His nickname is Plugger.
No, he's his nickname, but that's where the comparison ends.
Well, he's got a little around the waist. That's
spare tires.
And they're both listed as forwards.
That's about it. Well, one's 20 centimetres taller than the other.
Yeah, we'll stop there.
And about 20 kilograms heavier.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't put it past him. But also, I mean, there's rumours about Billy Longer as well. I doubt Richmond will go for that because Hawthorn, I think, are offering a fair bit for him. Paddy Carnesis, I think, is going to Collingwood rather than Richmond.
Where's Conker going?
I hope he's staying. Hall of Famer.
What about his teammate Martin?
No, he's staying. I'm getting sick of it, but he's staying. And as well,
we're going to keep the standby to this, just in case.
Yeah.
No, just in case. They're staying. But there's something I wanted to say about trading. Dan Richardson, the new football operations manager, took over for Craig Cameron. He said it in an interview recently on radio that we were looking at a ruck and a key forward. Now, I'm not sure if that was just looking as in, that's a ruck. But
how about someone like Liam McBean, who's both?
He's a gun. That's what he is. He's similar to Joe Danaher, but he's better.
He's too good to play AFL. That's why he's been playing AFL.
He snapped his ankle. That's why. He did ligament damage in his ankle, but he really needs to bulk up, and I think this preseason is going to be huge for him. Hopefully he doesn't lose too much of his agility because, honestly, this is without Richmond bias. He does play like a small forward, even though he's 200 centimetres, which is absolutely ridiculous. No, Dustin Martin will not go to Collingwood text line. I will not lock it.
But he saw it coming out of the Westpac Centre.
You can keep irritating Matt Joyce on the text line if you want on 0427 767 767 or online at sim.org.au.
They're doing a good job, actually. Another one recommends Levi Greenwood and Liam Anthony to Richmond. Good depth players. No, I reckon first 22 players.
Don't even start.
Well, I guess
I'd take Greenwood ahead of Lonergan. I mean, that's about it.
But I guess in a way, if you look at the other side of the argument, the last team that we have to look at is Collingwood and who they'll bring in, and well, they've pretty much shafted everyone from their list, so there ain't many left. So they'll probably be needing to bring in a few players, I'd say.
Finish 8th on the ladder. Absolutely turn over the list.
Which is... That's a strategic plan by Richmond and Collingwood to lose, so we get the easier draw next year. Yes.
With their delistings, are they official? So, like, when they've announced them, is it done? They're cut, so they can't trade them?
Well, not official until
October.
List lodgement. Okay.
But I mean, once they release it, you know, it's pretty much 99% done.
Couldn't they trade Jolly? I mean, Jolly's probably still got some currency, maybe to a side like Melbourne, for example.
He's cooked, I think.
Yeah.
And even Didak as well.
But to be fair, like, I think it's more of a case of saying to him, letting everyone know that he's like, they're going to be gone. So it's almost saying, here you go, we'll give you the most possible time to search out your options. Yeah. So, I mean, in a way, it's better than a club leaving it to, like, the day before and then going, oh, yep, you're given the flick. At least then they know, both internally and externally. Obviously, I think... Yeah, they could have got late picks, but it's nothing worthwhile, I don't think.
The draft isn't that deep.
You'd be better off trading for mature ages as well, but they won't get
As a Collingwood supporter, would you like to keep Shaw? Or do you think, now that he's still got some currency...
Well, yeah, you'd want to trade him out, I think. Like, I mean, you want to keep him, but he frustrates you so much. Like, his best is so good, but his worst and his attitude is just so bad, and it's like, just...
Sounds like someone that used to play for Carlton.
I think he's got a lot of currency.
Sounds like Harry O'Brien.
No cracker will not be at Richmond as a rookie next year. Text line.
This is getting better and better.
Richmond already, and we delisted him.
This is just getting better and better there.
Keep going.
Yeah, but obviously Collingwood, if Dale Thomas is the biggest thing, whether he leaves, and if he leaves and Shaw leaves, and then you got the rumours about Dane Swan leaving, like, whether that's a lot of crap. That won't happen, I don't think.
He hasn't got enough currency in the open market at the moment.
But that's the thing, and at the moment, it seems everyone's leaving, so pretty much...
You're getting Carneses, at least.
Yeah, well, that's one.
After making 8 final series in a row.
I know.
And still being a young list.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ridiculous.
And so Collingwood could potentially have pick 10 and 11 if Thomas leaves, so that's quite handy. Couple of picks.
Try and pick Lewis Taylor twice over.
Yeah, get Lewis Taylor and Matt Crouch are the two, hopefully. But... yeah, we'll just have to see. And then there's the potential of trading them for pick 1, which would be Tom Boyd, just quietly.
Oh, yeah.
Ridiculous. Well, that was it for our reviews. We're going to go quickly to some SYN messages and be right back after this.
Panorama, Melbourne's youngest newsroom.
I mean, how can something be non-lethal when people have died?
Hey, happy Valentine's Day. It's also International Condom Day. Would you like, one of our condoms? It seems like such a grotesque amount of waste of money.
This is not the Soviet Union. The government doesn't mandate that people can't drive a car.
It's like throwing tear gas, concussion grenades. 2 students lost eyes.
I think the sole purpose of Grindr is to meet people to have sex with.
Hey, sit up and listen to us. Take us more seriously, please.
Tune in to Panorama, 4:30 weekdays on SYN.
You listen to their first show, Velociraptors, as they delved into time, space, and the human mind. You listen to their second show, Quantumania, as they explored the intricacies of quantum physics. Now listen to them every Saturday evening as they ask each other trivia questions. Join Nick, Rowan, and Michael 6 till 7 p.m. Saturday for Quiztomania on SYN.
Are you a fan of Monday Night Raw? Perhaps you like to watch them fight on Friday nights. Or maybe you're just interested in what's going on at NXT. Well, no matter what, if you're a WWE fan at heart, you're going to want to catch the SmackDown Hotel every Saturday from 9 p.m. only on SYN.
SYN's Australian feature album of the week, Chris Russell's Chicken Walk, Shakedown.
Get your meat from a butcher. Get your free from.
Shakedown by Melbourne bluesman Chris Russell sees a road-matured chicken walk, a record playing homage to America's Deep South.
Listen to the Australian feature album Chris Russell's Chicken Walk, Shakedown, all this week on SYN.
And we're back on Bound for Glory. Got to talk prelim finals. There's only 3 games left this year, unless there's another drawn grand final. First up is Geelong and Hawthorn. Are they playing first?
Yes,
they are.
fantastic.
Which is...
oh my God, the excitement! Geelong Hawthorn at a prelim is
it's not
second
a grand final.
Geelong Hawthorn in the grand final as to the anticipation that's going to be surrounding it.
Except for the amount of times we hear Kennett curse over the next, 5 days.
If you haven't seen that video on YouTube, you have to see it. It's so good. It's basically him saying the speech over and over again and then showing a highlight of Geelong winning a game each time. It's so good. It's so good.
Okay, so it's pretty good.
Oh, no, it's so good. But you've got... I think Hawthorn have them this time. I really, really, really do.
You say that every time.
Yeah,
I don't say that every time.
No, the media does.
Oh.
Even the bookies get on them.
Yeah.
Hawthorn always bloody resounding favourites, and then
they have open favourites this time. So
no,
I don't see it.
You don't see what?
I don't see Hawthorn winning.
No, now they will. Because we always say we can't see Geelong winning, and they always do.
Oh, because I jinx every side I tip to.
And we're forgetting it's an odd-numbered year, so Geelong kind of have to win just for that
And
purpose.
how good would a Geelong Freo grand final be?
Oh,
Another one. They're always classics.
well, now we're talking about some team that just can't lose, like that keeps winning grand finals in the past few years, compared to a team that just doesn't win grand finals. So
Thing is, Hawthorn would kick Freo's ass in a grand final. Geelong wouldn't. So
Yeah.
I'm rooting for the close grand final. I want Geelong to win.
I don't think Hawthorn would kick Freo's ass.
They have.
I don't think they will.
Freo have never got the better of Hawthorn over the past couple of years.
yeah, I think
I think Rossi would lift them. I really do.
to an
hope so.
under 10-point loss or a draw. But yeah, I think in this match, I think it will be close again. These guys always have a great match-up. Buddy usually doesn't do a lot, as they are.
He's suspended, though.
Not for this match.
No, he's back.
He's back.
Oh, he's
he only
back.
had one
Yeah,
week.
only 1 week.
Wrong one.
Yeah, they didn't. As if again, tinfoil hat. There was no way he was going to miss a potential Hawthorn-Geelong clash. So
Yeah, but Tom Lonergan always goes to him, and they match up quite well. And Lonergan has a very good record against him. Franklin doesn't kick many goals against Geelong, so
I think Gunston might be the X factor.
it's about quelling Roughhead for mine. I mean, Harry Taylor probably goes to him. I mean, they're both very mobile players, but if Roughhead kicks 3 or 4 goals, it goes a long way to Hawthorn winning, and he might be the barometer in the end.
yeah, I think it'll be very interesting. And the same with, like, as we spoke about Cam Guthrie earlier, who he goes to if he does that run with roll in the middle.
Probably to Bruce, I'd say.
Yeah, well, he's that danger forward who's, after the 3 tools is probably the next marking target in there. So,
Or actually, could go to Rioli. I mean, pushing through the midfield, I think it might be a more ideal matchup for Guthrie.
and then of course whether they have Chapman or not up forward, because with him and Stevie J, that
very
they can do anything really. So,
I mean, who have they...
And Hawkins.
Who would they... If Chappie's out, who would they replace him with? That's the question.
I'd go George Hornsmith.
Yeah.
He played well in the VFL yesterday.
You wouldn't replace him with, like, Burberry or Murdoch or anything?
Nah, Burberry I don't think has done enough. Murdoch's been good, but it depends what you're replacing. Whether you're replacing a Paul Chapman who's going to play in the midfield every week, or you're looking for a more forward type in Murdoch. And I think if you're looking for a midfield, you go Hornsmith, and I think he's been in better form.
Definitely.
yeah.
There's a text here. Someone's might be Bruce because looks as though they're going a little bit overboard. Who takes Cyril? Who has the job of the greatest footballer to ever play the game? Delicious. Oh, yummy, Cyril. I reckon that is Bruce.
It is Gutters. That's my nickname for him, by the way, for Cam Guthrie. And I mean, Josh Hunt, who will he go to if he gets a game? Because Corey Enright's obviously... Yeah, maybe Josh Hunt could play in the midfield or something like that.
Or they got players like Bruce as well, and maybe if Brad Hill's pushing forward. I mean, they got enough defenders that they can actually rotate it. I mean, obviously, it also depends on whether Jared Rivers comes up from his ankle injury. He's in doubt now, so... I mean, it depends on how they line up, I suppose. I mean, if Rivers doesn't play, I think Josh Hunt probably plays more tall and takes someone like, I don't know, might match up on Jack Gunston for a little while.
I think someone really needs to sit on Isaac Smith, because if you do that, it kills Hawthorn's run. And that is really important for how they're going to play the game.
He's been fantastic, bar the qualifying final, in his last 2 months or so. And that's with, the tag applied to him. He's teams are starting to realise how damaging his run is. He's an 80-metre player. He's very quick off the mark, and he's got a very, very lethal kick, and very accurate as well. He'll hit up someone 55 metres away.
So in this game, who are our tips, do you reckon?
I'm going to go Geelong, just because they've got a better record against top 8 sides, and they got an all-conquering record against Hawthorn.
Hawks. They deserve it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm going to say the Hawks. I hope they win because they do deserve to win it for once. But Geelong could win it, and I hope they don't.
I think it'll be a draw, and then in extra time, Hawkins will kick the goal, and Geelong will
after
win.
the siren in extra time.
In extra time, yeah.
Try and jump up and dislodge one.
So
of
if it's a draw,
vertebrae in the spine.
Just looking at the last time they played, the top goal scorer for the match was Murdoch for the Cats.
Yeah,
which is surprising.
He kicked 3 in the last quarter. So, yeah, he might come in. He's got a good record against Hawthorn.
Yeah, there you go.
But, of course, then you got to think you'd hope that Geelong would win and then they'd stay in the team because they have a VFL Grand Final on the weekend. So
yeah, that's the problem.
You'd hate to miss it and then they lose the prelim and they're like, damn it, I missed out on a premiership.
Yeah, do you rather play a prelim in the AFL against the Hawks, or do you rather play a VFL Grand Final against the Hawks? Either way, you play all
them.
Interesting weekend, that's for sure.
Damn successful clubs.
Yeah. And the second prelim on Saturday night, which is absolutely ridiculous if the Swans get up, Fremantle against Sydney. Can you just imagine that? If Sydney win, then they'll have to catch like a 1 a.m. Like they'll be back in Sydney at like 2 a.m. or something like that.
Well, the game starts over there at 5:45, so it'll finish around 8:20.
I'd say if they win, they'll probably be back in. Win or lose, they'll probably be back in Sydney roughly around the same time.
Yeah, but for recovery purposes, it'll be not so good if they're having to land in Sydney at 2 or 3.
I don't think they're gonna,
Which is ridiculous. Like, why wouldn't you make it a pure afternoon game rather than a twilight game?
They can just have their ice baths back in Sydney under the moonlight.
so romantic.
If it were
candles and roses.
If it were an afternoon game over there, it would conflict with Channel 7 News. So
and depending on the weather, that's the other thing.
We can't go there at all.
Yeah. I think it'll be very tough because Ross obviously knows how to make grand finals. He's very experienced at getting close to winning premierships by now. So
Ross Lyon, non-premiership.
Well, he's probably one of the best non-premiership coaches.
Could be another draw.
Could
last
be.
encounter.
Could be.
Nah.
That would be good.
Yeah, so Fremantle, obviously, they've made a prelim before. They haven't made a grand final. So,
go for it.
You can't really see them. I can't see them losing, but you never know with Sydney. Sydney are the one team that I think if the other teams that were in there, the other two, if they were decimated as bad as Sydney, you'd think Freo in a heartbeat. But I think Sydney are the one team that you can bring anyone in and they'll perform. So, yeah, I love the way
they
Sydney
brought in Shane Biggs for the game.
Oh, it was all right last night.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he came in, I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And then he actually played all right. So
I just respect Sydney so much. I hope they win, but it's tough to see.
You got to go for Freo. They've never won a premiership.
I know. No.
Are they the new powerhouse on the horizon?
No, they can win their one and then piss off. But
more premierships than Richmond in 30 years.
Yeah, get off.
One more finals win and they've equalled you, I think, in the last 30 years. Yeah.
No, but I think Freo have got this quite easily, actually. Walters is going to go nuts, even if he's got Nick Smith on him, who's a great small defender, but I think Walters is going to have a great game. Pav is hitting form. Sandilands is hitting some very good form. I mean, he had his best game of the year, although he hasn't had that many last week. In week 1 of the finals. But, I think Fremantle's going to be too good for Sydney.
Yeah, I think Freo are a much better side when Pavlich, Sandilands and McFarlane are all on the side. And the fact that they're all over 30, I think they're going to do it either this year or they're probably not going to get a chance next year if they're having them all there, all fit all season, or even just in the finals. So they're going to do it this year. I think reverse results of the 2006 prelim. I think Freo will get up by about 30 points.
Yep, 20 to 30 for me.
I was going to say there wouldn't be too many people left from that 2006 prelim, so...
How about you two? Tips?
I'm going to go with Freo.
No, I'm going different. I'm going Sydney just for the hell of it. I feel bad for them not getting a tip, so I'll say Sydney by 2 points.
Aren't you nice people?
Yeah.
It's so nice.
Generous.
Well, thank you again for listening to Bound for Glory. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Bound for Glory FM, as well as on Facebook, and be sure to check out boundforglorynews.com for all your footy news, fantasy news, and most importantly, under-18s coverage. The draft and the combine and everything is coming up so soon. And we've got player profiles, phantom drafts, and weekly round updates of the TAC Cup competition, which just had 2 great finals on the weekend. And while you're at it, be sure to follow Bound for Glory News as well on Twitter and Facebook. But that's about all for this week. We'll be back same time next week. See ya.
I'm invincible. I'm paying money. The girl's happy. She's got no money. I got my rocks off. Oh, how good is this?